Now, it is time for Media Watch, and Emma James is here with us in the studio. It's good to see you, Emma. We're going to talk how social media has been covering these deadly flash floods down in southwest France. 12 people killed at the last count, 1 person still missing, and 8 people injured. This is really devastating for these picturesque little villages down in the
Absolutely. Beautiful part of the world, and it has been literally inundated. The cabinet reshuffle very much on hold as the leaders of France focus on giving their help to the people who've been worst affected. The Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe, travelled down to the town of Villeguéanc earlier on today, and his face in that image really telling the story far better than any words can. Clearly devastated by what he has seen, so much damage done in that part of southern France. Lots of people posting images of what has been going on, including Benjamin Peter of Europe 1, or Europe 1. He's in the same town where he's been posting images like this one, showing how a bridge has simply been swept away by the water when it was at its highest, and cars have been lifted up and left just piled on top of one another. And of course, the damage like this really pales into insignificance in the face of those fatalities, because of course the loss of life, we do understand at the moment that it stands at 12. That may
terrifying
rise.
To see the force of the water though, because it really came out of nowhere, didn't it?
It really did. There was a huge amount of rainfall, and looking at Carcassonne this afternoon, the River Aude, yes, desperately swollen, but looking quite calm at that particular moment this afternoon. But of course, last night the images were very, very different. This is in nearby Trèbes, which really did suffer the worst in this particular bout of flooding. This should be a lock, but as you can see, it's a very chaotic scene. This was the centre of Trèbes last night, just covered in water. There's some kind of awful looking film on top of the water as well, which makes it look even worse. But yes, that road completely submerged. And of course, a lot of people pointing out this woman saying it's so sad to see her village Trèbes once again in the media for the saddest of reasons, because Trèbes is where, of course, there was a terror attack back in March. Arnaud Beltrame, the hero police officer, of course, who exchanged his place for a hostage and ended up paying with his life. And a lot of people talking about how Trèbes has had a devastating year to contend with. And of course, it's the emergency services who've been out dealing with the worst of this today. The local has plenty of images from the south of France showing just how much water there is around, and people really finding it very difficult to get anywhere at all, and some people trapped in their homes just waiting for emergency services to come and help them out. Now, we had 6 months of rain in the course of 3 hours. It's not quite unprecedented. Back in 1891, there was a higher measurement of water, 7 metres 95. Whereas it was 7 metres 58 last night, or in the early hours of this morning. But certainly very, very unusual to see that scale of water in that particular part of the world. This gentleman wondering whether Trèbes has suffered from too much building work. You can see the difference between those two images there. Perhaps that's a question for a later date. But this particular radiologist saying that the new hospital that's been built in Carcassonne on a known flooding area, perhaps they hadn't done all that they should have to keep that particular building safe.
Wow, really terrifying situation down there in southwest France. All right, let's talk about another story. And this is, of course, the disappearance of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, which has been in the news for 2 weeks now, really, because that's when he disappeared after wandering into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. There are a lot of opinions online about this, aren't there?
Yes, very much so. And what we're starting to see is really a backlash from Saudi Arabia. Tweets like this one: "We proudly stand with our country against any threat and fake news that tries to cause harm to us." Now, that's after Saudi Arabia itself said it was going to tackle the spread of fake news, or rumour mongering, as they called it, threatening people with 5 years in prison or very heavy fines if they share any stories that they believe to be fake news. And it does appear from the wording, it's a little bit ambiguous, but it does look as though if you so much as like a tweet that they deem to be fake, then you could perhaps be prosecuted. But we'll have to wait and see just how strongly they police that one. This woman saying, "Just to be clear, talking about Jamal's murder would be deemed a rumour, and so now a crime in Saudi. Good luck, Godspeed to those who are going to Davos in the desert," as it's nicknamed.
So many are
no, absolutely. The Future Investment Initiative should be a huge gathering. Lots of people already pulling out. but it is going to be interesting to see whether or not people's Twitter feeds are checked to see whether they've been saying anything that they shouldn't in the run-up to that.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. Emma James there with Media Watch.